What's up, Trainz fans, and welcome back to the Pennsylvania Berwind. This is episode number 17. Thank you for joining me once again. This is probably going to be the last episode on the P&B in this area. That's right, I didn't mean to scare you. This is going to be, I think, the last episode over here in Phase 1. Starting in the next episode, I think what I want to do is start moving into the next area, because basically all that's left, and I talked about this in my last video on the P&B, basically what's left is a lot of uninteresting stuff, and I tried to capture some of that on camera for you to just see how boring it is, but also because I wanted to make this a video and whatever, YouTube, Trainz making, whatever kind of stuff. So anyway, basically what's left is connecting the dots, a lot of these little in-between things, and finishing up some of these smaller scenes that are mostly background scenes. And I know that most of you like watching my videos because of the detailed builds that I do, and a lot of the close-up scenery and stuff like that. And really, there's not a whole lot of that left. Because these are background structures, I'm not going too crazy with the details. I'm just trying to get some of the flavor there. And not using lots of blades grass, not using all the little newspaper details and stuff like that. Just throwing down some of the bigger brush strokes, basically. So, for the most part, it's not super interesting to watch what I'm doing. At least I don't think so. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to finish off this Phase 1 section, either off camera or during live streams, or a combination, well, it'll be a combination of the two. Because basically what's left is setting up some of the crossings, and just like moving a lot of trees around. You'll see me doing that a bit here and there throughout this episode. There's some areas where the trees that I had copied and pasted just became way too dense. Like around Junietta and Vani, the background trees are just way too dense. So I've been going through and either deleting handfuls of them or using a new copied and pasted like selection of trees that's not as dense. Because I've been noticing that there was some frame hiccups here and there where there really shouldn't be. And the only thing that I could really attribute that to is just the tremendous amount of billboard trees that are just densely packed. Like some areas, there was trees inside of trees, like in a 1-for-1, you know, like you could barely tell that there was a second or even a third tree in some cases in this one spot. So I've been going through and removing that and just doing that kind of stuff. That's not super interesting to watch somebody do. I don't even like doing it. It's very irritating for me to have to do this part of the build. I kind of wish I did it while I was doing these other builds so that I didn't have to go back and redo it as a separate thing. But basically that's what's left. And as I said here, this is a background scene here that I was working on from episode 2, I believe, the oil refinery, I think it was episode 2. So this is just a background scene that I never finished. So I'm trying to just wrap things up like this and just be able to move on and get this a little bit closer to a release. So you guys have been asking me when it's going to be released. I keep saying soon, and honestly, I'm not even going to give a date anymore or even say soon. Well, I'll say soon. I think it should be soon. There's really not a whole lot left to do, but it's just irritating stuff. I wish I could just hand it off to somebody else and be like, here, you finish this. I did the detailed stuff, but I'm not going to do that. So basically, I'm going to be doing this mostly off camera from here on out, and then during a few live streams between now and the end of the year, with a hopeful potential release around the new year, which would be really awesome because the original P&B by Bill M came out, I think it was just before Christmas or just before the new year, back in like 2009 or something like that. So it'd be kind of cool to release it around the same time, if I can. No promises, don't quote me. But a few of these scenes are actually kind of substantial, like the one that I'm just getting started with here. Right behind Old Town, this is Old Town by the way, right behind Old Town, there's this huge farm field, and for the longest time it's just been this big sort of placeholder. You know, I know I was going to put a farm here, and I just put some crops down and put it there. It's just a background sort of thing. It didn't bother me, but now that I'm going to put it out to you guys eventually, I feel like it's something that I need to complete. It needs to get done. So I'm working on it here. I did some of it off camera. I did some of it on camera. Basically, I was using some of the same techniques that I used in the previous farm builds, and some of it I actually copied and pasted, bringing some of the what do you call it? What did we call it in that video? With the property lines and property divisions and where they would bring the water in and that sort of thing. So I was bringing that in there. I can't remember what the name of it is. Now that pressure's on, the film is rolling. But anyway, so I did some work here. I think it came out pretty good. Here it is, doing the copying and pasting part. And again, that was something that I didn't think you guys really would care to see in terms of a video, is just copying and pasting stuff that I've already done. And it's not out of laziness, don't get me wrong, and please don't call me lazy. It's just because some of this stuff is in the background. I didn't see the need in having to put a tremendous amount of detail and work into it. And there's so much of it that it needs to get done, that it just seemed more efficient to me to just copy and paste things. And then later on, the way that I'm looking at it is later on, we can always come back and delete the stuff that's been copied and pasted and update scenes. Like, I have no problem doing that. I think that that's a great idea, and I plan on working on this map even if one day it's ever fully complete. You know, we can revisit things and scenes and redo them over again, or add more detailed neighborhoods and things like that. So that's my idea here, is just to fill in some of these areas with trees, scenic them up, and call it a day, because I'm kind of anxious to move on to phase 2. And I was looking at the map, and maybe I'll talk about this during live mode. I'm gonna make a note, and we'll talk about this during live mode, about what's left and how I think phase 2 is going to be a little bit better than phase 1 in terms of building. But anyway, now we've jumped over here to Vonnie, and again, on my to-do list was just to finish off some of this background stuff behind Vonnie, and it's still a pretty small town, and really all I did was I closed it up with some trees, and I put this little farmhouse back here, and it works. I mean, it looks good. It's not a deep scene, and the town does feel very small. So one day I would like to come back and expand it a little bit more, maybe have a little bit more of a transition into like residential neighborhood or something like that. But for now, this is their downtown area. It goes right into the woods. To me, it kind of feels like the Old Forge area up in the Adirondacks. If you go on a map and you look up Old Forge, I've mentioned this in previous videos. That's kind of the area that's been inspiring me mostly for Vonnie and Old Town, where there's this basically a main street where all the shops and restaurants are and stuff like that. And then it pretty much immediately just turns into woods, like right behind them, and residential neighborhoods. So that's kind of what I had in mind when I was doing a lot of this, and I think you'll see some similarities if you look it up on Google. So aside from that, the other thing that I want to mention is this episode is a little bit delayed because the game had totally locked up on me, and I had to do a full reinstall. And one thing that you might have noticed by now, I should have talked about this in the beginning, is that my pick lists are all gone. And yep, that's pretty irritating to me. I've had to, I think, reinstall Trainz maybe 3 times this year so far, and each time I've lost my pick list. So one thing, and I mentioned this on the forums, that I would like to see one day, maybe in the next version of Trainz, would be a way to save and export your pick lists, because I think for 2 reasons. One is that it would make it so much better when you had to reinstall your game. You could just reinstall your pick lists. You don't ever have to worry about losing them. Even if it just saves it as like an XML file or something like that, just a really simple data file. It doesn't have to be like a CDP or something like that. Just so you have a backup of it, you know? I think that would be great. And 2, a lot of you guys ask me what assets I'm using. And I'm sure this goes on the forums too. When you see a screenshot, you're like, hey, what assets are you using? Instead of me listing out all the KUIDs of like what assets I've used for this, that, and the other thing, I could just save my pick list and say, here's what I use, and put it up somewhere, and you guys can just import the pick list and then download the assets from there. You wouldn't actually be trading any assets around. You would just get them from the download station. It would just be a thing to point your game to the download station. So I think that would be really handy, and I would love to see that, because this is pretty irritating. But aside from that, the game was very stubborn recently and required me to do reinstall, which was very irritating. And I think that is about all I have to talk about right now, because the time lapse is about to run out, and I'll see you guys in live mode in just a moment. And here we are. Where is here? This is Old Town. Welcome back to Old Town. All right, so let me just go over a few more things. This is one of the scenes that I was working on. Still, it's a little plain, but again, it's a bit of a background scene. Not a big deal. I think the main viewing angle, at least the angle that I always look at it from, when I'm running trains through here is this way. I tend to stay oriented like this. And if I do look in this direction, it's usually something like this. So I think the scene works. It's okay that it's not completely finished, but at the same time, how much more could I really do? I could go way back here and keep doing detail stuff, but I think I would just be wasting polygons or something. Like I would be introducing more lag to this area than is necessary, because some of these scenes that are so close are so detailed. By adding more details further away, I'm gonna hurt myself for the close-up scenes. So I'd rather have scenes very close be very detailed rather than everything be very detailed, just because of how this game operates. And there's already just thousands of assets pretty much being rendered at any given time. To be perfectly honest with you, sometimes I'm surprised that this game can really even deal with that kind of amount of, you know, what is going on here. There's a lot of different items being rendered. So sometimes it's pretty amazing. If you really think about it. I mean, the game can be very stubborn sometimes, but anyway, that's off topic, I guess, a little bit. So we're looking at some areas that I did a little bit more work on. I did do a lot of work off camera for this episode, so there's a lot that I didn't record. Mainly, it was a whole lot of stuff like this. I'll demo it for you. This is what you missed. That's it. There was a lot, many hours of me just kind of dragging trees around and getting really irritated by how far off the hitboxes are. Like, look at this. My mouse isn't even touching this tree, and it grabbed it. I was going for this one. So just a lot of that, and deleting trees and moving things around. Another thing that I did was I filled this area in here. Ooh, I can't get a good angle. Here we go. I did fill in this area with some trees. For now, again, this is something that we can come back and add maybe some kind of like a little housing development or something like that. But for the time being, I think it's fine. I might detail it just a little tiny bit more so it doesn't feel too forced and too, you know, woodsy. So there might be some more stuff that I need to do in there. I gotta update these crossings to something else. I want to look at the TRC crossings that you guys have been telling me about. I haven't had the time to learn how to use them and get it set up, which is also why this was a shorter video, and also because of the lack of interesting things to do, because I think I must have recorded this video for, I don't know, or I worked on the video, like the building part, for like 5 or 6 hours or so, and I had a very short time lapse just because of the type of stuff that was left to do. So again, I came back this way and started working on some of these trees, these background trees. This has got to be thinned out a little tiny bit. Some areas it is very, very thick. I don't remember if I thinned this out or not, or if it matters. It's not too bad over here. I do get a little bit of framey in this area, and I think I'm really afraid that it's these things, these cattails. Or the reeds. I love the way that they look, but I don't know that we can keep them, just because anytime I look in this direction, it gets very laggy. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Stuff over here I gotta do a little bit of work on. I don't know what is going on here. I also filled in some of the scenery over here, and for the most part, this area is kind of finished. I did also. This is gonna be a whole lot of I did. I also finished. I don't even know if I finished it. Let me see. Back where we were a few episodes ago, in the shopping area, I did put a little construction firm here. This is, what are we called? Dieter General Contractors Construction. So I added a few construction vehicles and some debris. And again, this is kind of a background building, so I didn't want to go too crazy with it. And again, this area gives me some framey issues as well. Oh, let me show you with these trees. I could definitely show you in this area. You see how close some of these trees are? I think there's 3 trees in here. Yep, look at that, there's 3. 1, 2, 3. So they were just tucked in together basically as one tree. And that happened because I copied and pasted these trees so many times that they just ended up getting layered over top of each other. So this is what I've been going through and deleting and trying to fix. Because this area was getting very, very framey, and it's kind of framey right now too, but it's not too bad. So anyway, as I said during the time lapse, I think what is gonna happen is the rest of this kind of stuff I'm gonna do off camera and during live streams. The next P&B, which might be a little ways away because I might take a little bit of a break because I have a huge project that I'm working on right now that should be premiering next Friday, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. The next phase, I think, is going to go a lot faster than this phase, and I'm going to explain why. I haven't mapped out exactly where phase 2 is going to end, but basically phase 1 is going to end somewhere in this vicinity. And let's look at everything that phase 1 encompasses. There's Junietta Yard right here. We've got Mill Creek over here. We've got Old Town. We've got this oil refinery. We've got Vonnie. We've got Iron City. We've got our farm here. We've got everything in between. Plus we've got, this was, oh man, what coal? Oh man, coal tipple assist. I think this is the Babcock coal tipple, if I'm not mistaken. So phase 1 encompasses all of that. This is like tons. This is like 5 different like layouts, you know, because this is the main line, a branch line, another branch line, and another branch line. So there's a lot going on. The next phase is going to be from here, whatever, through here. This is Allegheny Yard. So a very large yard, but track work is done, so I don't have to worry too much about that. This is going to be a very downtown kind of scene, so there's going to be a lot going on here, a lot to build, but it shouldn't be too bad. Most of the rest of this is mainline trackage. There's a paper mill over here and a small town somewhere in here, so there's going to be a lot of farmland and that sort of thing, and I think phase 2 might end right around here because this goes into another branch line, which I haven't really started yet. It's there, but I actually think I'm going to delete pretty much everything that's here and start fresh. And then we go further, and then this is Grafton down here, and this doesn't look right. Looks... something happened, and I'm gonna investigate this after the video because this was kind of finished, and it wasn't a brown mess like this, so I'm a little worried. But anyway, so I think phase 2 is gonna go a lot faster, just because there's more mainline stuff to do, and fewer like branch lines that we're gonna have to go down in detail. So that's my overly quick explanation of what is to come, and I guess stay tuned for some live streams on this. And another thing I'd like to mention is that I did get a subscription to Epidemic Sound, which gives me access to some really awesome music, which I am introducing here in this video, and I will be introducing into my other videos. And I think I could use it during my live streams too, but I have to, it doesn't say on their website, so I have to check that out. So new music, which is nice because I'm sick of the YouTube music. And other than that, I think that is gonna do it for today's episode, guys. Sorry for the short episode, but thanks for joining me again. Next week will be a brand new build, another new series, huge build. That's coming next week. In the meantime, guys, enjoy your time off for Thanksgiving and everything else. Have a nice weekend, and leave a comment below and a like and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. All right, see you guys next time.